Talk about innovation. We are honored to be joined by Tom Szaky, who is founder and CEO of an organization called TerraCycle. Is that right, TerraCycle, Tom?
You got it. Absolutely. And thanks for having me.
It's great having you. Based where?
In Trenton, New Jersey.
That's right. We're talking about Trenton. We're talking about innovation, business innovation. Tell everyone what TerraCycle is.
So TerraCycle is a global waste management company. While we are headquartered in Trenton, we operate nationally in 21 countries around the world. And the stuff we do is recycle things no one else recycles, from cigarette butts to dirty diapers, help companies make their products from waste, and even have launched the world's largest reuse platform. So your favorite products in fully reusable packaging.
So hold on one second. There's municipal recycling, and then there are companies like yours. What's the difference?
Well, so in municipal recycling, what you are recycling is what the garbage company that's contracted can make money at. So an aluminum can, right? The aluminum is valuable enough to incentivize someone to collect it and process it and then make money on whatever they can sell. But 80% of goods you can't recycle locally. That's everything from a pen you may be writing with, to a toothbrush, to a coffee capsule. And TerraCycle focuses only on recycling the things that you can't municipally recycle by getting a stakeholder who may be interested in it to fund the cost of collecting and processing it.
How did you get into this? Because my understanding is, our producer Abby told me that you told her you were at Princeton University. We just actually had the dean of the graduate school at Princeton on. We're taping most of the day today. And I'm thinking, so Tom is at Princeton, he leaves Princeton and does this? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's exactly right. You know, I left in the middle of my second year because I got really fascinated first by the concept of purposeful business, you know, viewing profit more as an indicator of health and then using business as a tool for good. And I fell in love with the topic of waste because garbage is filled with all these phenomenal anomalies.
Back up, Tom.
Yeah.
You fell in love with the topic of waste.
That's right.
Could you explain that love affair?
Yeah, it's garbage as a topic to me is like eternally fascinating because it is filled with all these anomalies. So I'll give you a couple of examples, right?
Please.
We live in a materialistic world. You know, our status in some part, and maybe in no small part, is linked to the stuff we own. But isn't it interesting that the garbage industry will legally own everything you possess with no exception? One day, all your possessions will be legal property of a garbage company. I mean, that's really odd. And 99% of what you buy becomes property of a garbage company within the year of purchase.
How do you recycle dirty diapers?
So the most important part here,
Scarlett, our cameraman, just laughed at that. Scarlett, it's a legitimate question.
It is.
Seriously, how do you do that? And explain it.
Yeah, and you know, and we do it today in Japan, France, and Holland. So it's live in multiple countries. And so the first and most important thing is the business model, right? Collecting diapers and processing them is much more expensive than the results are worth. So it's finding a stakeholder, in this example, Pampers, who is excited and willing to fund that solution. And then we set up methods of how do we collect it. We got to make sure it's done safely, do it in ways that consumers will deposit diapers and so on. So we create smart bins that smell control, you know, deploy them in front of retailers. And then we come up with unique technology to be able to turn those diapers into sellable outputs like plastics and cellulosic material and so on. And honestly, each waste stream has a journey like that.
Why Trenton, New Jersey? You could be a lot of different places. Why Trenton?
Certainly so, yeah. I mean, to be very honest, when I first left Princeton, I needed to find a facility, and Trenton was the closest place that had affordable real estate. That's the honest story. But since being here for 20 years, I have really fallen in love with this town in that it is the best location in the Northeast, you know, right between Manhattan and Philadelphia. We have about 600 team members, and many of them live in those cities and commute here. And also the city, you know, both the state and the city government leaders are here to help us. You know, they're coming through our office all the time, helping and thinking through, you know, how this company can succeed. So we are, and it's purposeful to be here. You know, it benefits the city much more than if we located in Brooklyn or San Francisco or somewhere else that already has a lot of exciting companies in it.
How many people do you employ?
600.
Wow. In and of itself, the idea, the reality of we employ at any one time 8 to 10 full-time people and a bunch of freelancers who are just incredibly talented and make things happen. I can't imagine what it must feel like to employ 600 people and know that you are helping them live their lives, their quality of life, food, shelter. And I'm not saying it sounded like you're some sort of benefactor, if you will. But that's got to be rewarding because they're working hard for it, but you're employing 600 people and contributing to the tax base of Trenton. Yeah. Please, Tom.
No, you're absolutely right. It is, I say it's a privilege to be able to have that opportunity. And it's just such a thrill that we're able to turn purposeful business into something that employs all these people, but also, 250 million people engage with our programs every day. Just folks out there collecting and recycling all over the world.
Wait a minute, 250 million, because I also know you have a global footprint. Explain that to us.
Yeah, so we operate today in 21 countries. In Thailand is a nonprofit, the TerraCycle Foundation, but everywhere else is a mission-driven for-profit. So from Canada to Japan, all headquartered out of here in Trenton. And today, about 250 million people a day interact with TerraCycle programs. That could be walking into a Walmart and recycling your car seat. It could be, going into the Japan's largest retailer and recycling your cosmetics. And in that process, we don't only collect and recycle millions of pounds of hard-to-recycle waste, but we also raise capital for charity. So we've donated about $50 million to organizations for helping to collect and recycle this waste. And so this is what we're all about, is how do you use the context of for-profit capitalism, which is an incredibly powerful tool. I'd say the most powerful tool in the world today, probably more powerful than war and politics and anything, but to do it where we reframe profit as an indicator of health. I mean, we're profitable and so on, but more as a health indicator than as a reason of being. And then the reason of being can become environmental and social improvement.
Let me ask you something. You have a sister program called Lessons in Leadership that I do with my colleague, Mary Gamba, and we're always interviewing leaders and trying to understand how they think and what they've learned as leaders and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm fascinated by leadership on so many levels. So I want to ask you this. What is, in building TerraCycle over 20 years and being in Trenton and employing 600 plus people, et cetera, what's the most significant leadership lesson you've learned over the years?
It's a good question. What first comes to mind is how to embrace failure, not to seek it, right? We don't want to seek it. We want to be conservative and avoid risk. But if you're going to innovate and grow and push the envelope, you certainly will fail. And what I think is so important, the way we approach it, I'm not saying it's the right answer, but it's been a huge unlocking method for us, is anytime there is an issue, a failure of some kind, big or small, the first thing we ask is, what are we going to learn about this? Because then the investment in that failure is like tuition. I mean, we go to school, spend a lot of money to learn, produce nothing, but a lot of education. Yeah. And failure.
A few seconds left, Tom. Go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting because I'm fascinated by what you're saying, but we don't have the innovation to continue to. Give me a few more seconds on this. Go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if you embrace failure as education, the organization will be incredibly strong for it. People will take risks. They'll try new things. They'll push the envelope. And if we fail, then we learn something. And if we don't fail, we succeed. In other ways, there's no negative if you do it right. If you criticize and failure and fear it, then people will never want to try to innovate, and you'll get stuck where you are.
You're listening to a very strong, innovative leader, Tom Szaky, who's founder and CEO of TerraCycle. Hey, Tom, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Best to you and your team. I'm Steve Adubato. That's Tom Szaky. We'll see you next time.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by NJM Insurance Group, Veolia, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, Choose New Jersey, TD Bank, Kane University, Hackensack Meridian Health, and by Delta Dental of New Jersey. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and by ROINJ.
NJM Insurance Company has been serving New Jersey policyholders for more than 100 years. But just who are NJM's policyholders? They're the men and women who teach our children, the public sector employees who maintain our infrastructure, the workers who craft our manufactured goods, and New Jersey's next generation of leaders, the people who make our state a great place to call home. NJM, we've got New Jersey covered.